When Grandma was your age, when Grandpa was just about the age you are, I remember. Those are great times with your grandkids. Our next part of this is discovering your spiritual story. You know, in order to be able to tell your story, you have to know your story. And so that's what we want to talk about for a few minutes here. This is not, let me tell you what it's not before I tell you what it is. This is not, okay, let's sit down, we're going to have the talk. I'm going to tell you about God. That's not what it is. It's not a one-time thing. This is a thing that you just keep pouring into your grandchildren. This is chapters of a book. This is not the little book that you read to 3-year-olds where you start and you finish and you're done. No, this is a chapter book. You're older kids now. You're reading a little bit, you're reading a little more, you're reading a little more until you get the whole picture. And your spiritual story is part of those chapters. In fact, it's the most important chapter. Your time when you came to know the Lord, and you need to think about it and be very intentional with it. You can't just go, oh, yeah, one day I'll talk about that with them. Because those one days will pass and you won't take advantage of it. And so one of the things that I hope you leave here with is the thought that I need to be intentional. I need to think through what would I tell my grandchild about who I was before the Lord and who I am now. What was it? How did God's grace rescue me from who I was before? And what does my journey look like now? How do you take all of that? And I'm going to give you a challenger. How do you take all of that and put it in 2 or 3 minutes? I call it the 12-floor elevator talk. Let's just imagine that you get on an elevator with your grandchild and you're on the 12th floor. You've got a conversation that needs to take place before you hit bottom. Okay, you're going to stop and pick up a few riders along the way. I'll give you a few extra seconds. But could you, when the doors open to that elevator, could you have told them what the Lord means in your life in 12 floors? That's how intentional we need to be with this story. You know, it's you need to get across to your grandchildren that this is a hard issue. This is a lifestyle. This is a journey. This is a mindset. This is something that happens, not just a one-time, I'm going to check it off my to-do list. I'm going to mark that off my bucket list. No, this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. I am on a journey hand in hand with my Lord and Savior. And I want you to know my story. That chapter is so important in your book. Now, some of you may have come in here tonight, and right now you're thinking, I don't have much of a story to tell my kids. I have one chapter. You know, other people have these. I always wish for a testimony that, you know, like I came from being a drug addict and the Lord found me in the gutters and stuff. I thought, that's really cool. Tempted me to go into drugs now. But you think those people have stories. But that's not true. I would love to hear stories of people that say, you know, I started when I was young and I have never walked away from the Lord and it's been a great adventure. Those are cool stories to me. But if you're going, I don't know if there's much to my story, here's what I want you to start thinking about. I want to guide you into discovering your spiritual story. I want you to think, when was a time in my life when God just took a hold of me and just rocked my world? When did he just shake everything up? When did he take me by the shoulders and go, head this direction? When was it? You have a moment like that? Do you have stories like that where I was heading this way, I was feeling this way, I had this attitude, but God just showed me something? He really shook up my world. He really rocked everything. Well, there are ways to discover that. And one of them I've put up here. And it's my favorite way to kind of put my story together. And it's using Post-it notes. And so when you think of one of those things, okay, that thing that really changed my life, when God really rocked my world, I'm going to put a word, a phrase, a whole sentence, just something that when I look at a Post-it note, I go, oh, I know that story. I know what it's talking about. And so you put that on a Post-it note. Now, put these on your refrigerator, put them on your mirror. I've got them up here on a board. Put them somewhere. And then as you think of other stories, I do this all the time. I'll be in the middle of a conversation. I'll go, I haven't thought about that in years. I need to write that story down. And so I write one little word, stick it on there. Now, these aren't in any order. They're not in a timeline or anything. If you want to, you can go through and put them in a timeline. But I've got things up here. Called to be a pastor's wife. Walk to me, Mommy. Dad baptized. John in the carpet. You don't know what those mean. But those are stories that are very personal to me. Stories that molded my spiritual journey. And so this is a way that you can kind of organize and realize how God has worked in your life. You can also just ask yourself questions that will bring these stories out. What was I like before I became a God follower? What am I like now? What's different? What changed? When did it change? What happened? You can ask yourself a question like this. Who's my favorite person in the Bible? What is my favorite story of a person of faith in the Bible? I'll tell you who mine is. It's Caleb, hands down. I love Caleb. Caleb and Joshua, 2 of the 12 spies that went into the promised land. The other 10 came back going, oh, we can't go. They're big. We feel like grasshoppers. And whining and everything. And Joshua and Caleb go, come on. Oh, who cares? They're giants. We've got God on our side. Let's go, guys. They lost that battle. And what happened? The Israelites wandered around the desert for 40 years. But you know, when they went into the promised land, the only 2 of those 12 spies that got to go in were Joshua and Caleb. And Joshua, now the leader of the Israelites, looks at Caleb. Now, Caleb's in his 90s by this time. He's got to be. And the Bible says that all that time he had been preparing himself. Can you see him? Working out. I'm working out. Yeah. And Joshua looks at Caleb. Yeah, just a second. Josh, I'm pumping iron. And he looks at Caleb and he says, Caleb, I'm dividing up the land. What part do you want? I know you're getting old. Wouldn't you like it right down here by the river where the trees are nice and shady? But you can have any part you want, bud. And Caleb goes, give me the giants. Go get me a giant. I want the giants. Yeah, I love that story. And you know what? That makes me think of times in my life when I said, come on, bring it on. I got God on my side. Go ahead. Send those giants my way. I don't care. I've got a mighty God on my side. And I want to go, I'm being Caleb. He's my person of faith. I love that guy. So think about a story out of the Bible that you relate to. Think about when you have either physically or just inside you felt yourself taking the position of just crumbling to the ground, kneeling down, just wasted. Something is happening in your life and you have no control over it and you feel yourself going, help, God, help me. You've been there. You have been there. That's part of your story. I was diagnosed on my 18th birthday with crippling rheumatoid arthritis. Within 3 months, it progressed so quickly that I could no longer take care of myself. I had studied piano since 4 and a half. I was called to be a pastor's wife. I was sure of that because they played the piano. So when the arthritis took away my piano playing, I was praying. My parents, my family was praying. My home church was praying. Churches that I didn't even know across the country were praying for my healing. And as soon as I'm healed, Lord, as soon as you heal me, I'm going to go back to serving you. And I'm going to play that piano like you have never heard before. I'm going to bring glory to you like God said, I need you to do that. 9 years of my life wasted because I was waiting for God to give me the answer that I told him I needed. And one night, I got to the place where I cried out, help. And I remember the pain was just overwhelming, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I sat in a big stuffed rocker. And I said, Lord, I can no longer live and wait. I can't do it. And for the very first time in my life, I acknowledged something. I acknowledged that the answer may be no. And I said, God, I need a yes or a no. And if the answer is no, would you just give me the strength to live with it? That was my turning point in my life, because immediately, I can't say that I heard the voice of God, but I felt his presence so powerfully that I could feel his voice in me. And it said, I love you, Tina, but I'm not going to heal you. And if you will just listen to my plan, if it's glory you want to bring me, it's going to happen. A lot more if you follow my plan. My life has been totally different since then. I even looked different the next morning to my husband. It's a sacred place. That chair was a sacred place where God changed the direction because I cried out, help. You've got to be intentional. You've got to think about it. You've got to think about those stories and how you're going to tell them to your grandchildren. They need them. Your stories are powerful. And if you don't think about them intentionally, the opportunity is going to pass and you're going to end up with a really flat forehead because you're going to be going, ugh, ugh. It's always after they've gone home and you go, oh, I had that opportunity and I didn't tell them then. Be intentional. Right now, you have Post-its on your table. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about that time when you crumbled before the Lord. When you said, help, I can't do this. And I want you to write that time on your Post-it. And I'd really like for you to share that moment with your table. I know that could be kind of painful some of those times. But I'd like for you to try to share that, because this is practice for you to share the same story that may be heart-wrenching, that may be emotional, but you need to share it with your grandchildren. Okay? Go at it.